Hey, happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
Happy 31st of September.
Uh,
No, August. I'm already thinking September.
Please, not yet.
No, August flew by though.
But there's not even 31 days in September, so you would have been incorrect even if you were correct.
Well, maybe it was a hidden surprise from 2020. Like watch December 31st turn to December 32nd, and then it's just like, what?
Right.
What a year.
Surprised. Yeah.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well considering all the crap that's happened this year.
It's been a lot of crap. Yeah.
But it's okay. It's good. It keeps us on our toes.
To say the least.
Yeah, right.
Because I think the last time you and I talked was for like a table read for one of Landon's projects, and was that in June? I want to say it was in June.
Probably. I think June is kind of when everyone started to go, oh, I guess we're doing everything on Zoom now. And yeah.
That seems that seems fitting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind Zoom personally. I think it's,
I don't either.
I don't know, it's more convenient for people. Like they don't have to plan and get ready, you know?
I don't even have to put pants on.
Exactly.
I mean, I am wearing pants right now, but I wouldn't have to.
Like, no, exactly. And like sometimes for my work, you know, we'll do Zoom calls to see how everybody's doing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I could literally just be sitting on my couch taking a break. Yep. It's just convenient. It's just like,
sure. It's nice.
It is nice. Are you so okay? Let's have you introduce yourself before we
okay. My name is Charla Bocchicchio.
Bocchicchio. I love that last name.
Pinocchio. Bocchicchio.
It's such a unique last name. I remember when I first saw it, I'm like Bocchicchio, but like it was a tongue twister.
Yeah, but everyone wants to make it something that it's not. When I get like telemarketers calling, if I ever answer the phone anymore, they always want to make it like Bocchicino. Like they add letters that aren't even there.
It's a new coffee.
Exactly, a Bocchicino.
If you go to Starbucks, you know, you say, "Oh, I want the Bocchicino," and they're like, "Oh, we know what that is. That's for you specifically."
I like that. I should talk to them about that. My stepdaughter works at Starbucks, so I could make that happen.
Oh, does she?
Mm-hmm.
I knew a few people that did. I don't know if they still do. That was back in like high school era.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Like almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
I know, old. Okay, what do you do, Charlie? Like, let's have people know what you do.
I am an actor, and I'm an acting coach, and nice. I'm a human being extraordinaire.
I love that. Being a human extraordinaire. What makes being human so extraordinary?
I think because our experience is uniquely ours, and we can make whatever we want of it. So I choose to make mine like extraordinary. I don't know. Even when I don't leave the house, it's extraordinary.
I like that.
It's much more fun than just thinking of like the humdrum life of I got this thing to do and blah 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 blah. It's all about perception.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's easy for me, like especially now with being stuck in my apartment. I'm just like, what to do today?
Yeah, I hear you.
But I mean, I've been going on more walks now recently. Mm-hmm. So it's nice, but a little bit more extraordinary than just sitting on my couch or sitting at my computer all day.
Yeah, sitting on your couch could be extraordinary if you let it.
It depends.
I guess.
If you're not scrolling through Facebook, yeah. that's like I don't know. That's like the Willy Wonka sequence in the tunnel of nightmarish images.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
How long have you been acting for?
I have been acting since I was, I guess I'll say high school age, like teenager. I mean, when I was a kid, I always liked to perform like in front for my family, but it really wasn't until high school that I started to do theater, and that's where I got my start, was in theater. So that was like a million years ago at Logan High School. I actually went to high school up in northern Utah.
Logan.
Yeah, Logan. And then after I graduated from high school, I went to the U and studied theater there. And I studied not only theater, but I studied theater with an education emphasis because I knew that I would teach as well. I just didn't know how that would pan out. I didn't want to teach like at a high school or anything like that. I knew kind of that it was going to be like freelance, but yeah, so I was learning how to act and to teach right side by side.
So did the emphasis add more to the college, like more years to it, or?
It did not. It was a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts. And rather than getting like a separate education certificate, like a teaching certificate, this was specifically teaching for theater. It was all in the theater department with the teaching emphasis, the education emphasis. So yeah, it was good. Cool. It was cool. I loved it. It was very specific.
What kind of, so did you help with like the theater stuff in college?
I did. When I was a student at the U, I taught at the theater school for youth in the summer. And then at that time they had an after school drama program too that I taught for.
Did you guys perform plays then? Like certain plays or?
For the youth theater? Yeah. For the summer program, it was like, I think 3 or 4 week program. And at the end we did like a showcase. So all the kids were in different classes all day long. They could choose their emphasis if they wanted to do like musical theater or whatever, Shakespeare. And then each class would have their own little performance that they did in the showcase at the Babcock Theater at the end of the summer.
That's fun.
It was fun.
I actually, my first acting, if you will, I think I was in 4th grade for like one of the elementary's theater performances. And I had to replace the main actor who played this king. And they're like, "You can do it." I'm like, "Yeah." And I got stage fright and screwed it up and butchered all the lines.
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Yeah, this is not for me." But then in high school, I was actually part of the stage crew for their theater program. Cool. And so it was kind of fun seeing and putting together live shows and seeing how that works.
There's something about theater that I think is really special that way because it's very collaborative in a different way than film is collaborative.
Oh, for sure.
You know, it's like everyone is like from the beginning to the end, you're all in it. You know, like film is collaborative, but we all like come and do our little jobs and then we leave and then we don't see it until it's a finished project. But this theater, there's something very communal that I really love. And I kind of miss, actually. I haven't done theater in 6 years, probably.
Really?
Yeah.
So when did you get into film acting then?
You know, it wasn't until probably about 15 years ago. So I was like well into my adult life. You know, I was like in my probably late 30s. And I was living in Birmingham, Alabama at the time.
Okay.
I'd been doing community theater, but in Birmingham, I also started my own youth theater company. So I was directing and teaching for that as well. And then, so I would be doing, community theater plays as an actor when I could, because I had a child and a marriage and, like life kind of happens. So I met a lot of people in the filmmaking community that also did theater. So these guys, they would do like short films and the, what are they called? The scrambles, the 48-hour film things.
Yeah.
And they would ask me to be in their stuff. And whenever I did film, I was like, oh, it just felt like my medium in a way that the stage never quite was for me. I always preferred like the small black box theaters for stage work because I I wanted it to be intimate, and I wanted it to feel like it was this experience that was really small, rather than being like on this big old gigantic stage with 2,000 people in the audience, you know. So I think once I found film, I was like, oh gosh, okay, this is it. And then I just kept, like, it snowballed from there. I just kept like having more opportunities, and then some commercial production people, you know, in Alabama that I met wanted me to do some of their stuff. So I really got my start on camera there. And then after I divorced, I ended up moving to LA for a few years, and I was teaching in LA as well as taking class myself. And I had an agent out there, and I was auditioning like all the time, and then ended up back in Salt Lake.
Are you from Salt Lake originally, or are you from Alabama?
No, I'm from Utah. Like, well, okay, here's the I guess I'm not from Utah. So I was born in Illinois, a little tiny town in Illinois, Belleville. And then when I was like a year old, we moved to Idaho, Burley, Idaho, small town. I'm like a small town girl. And then when I was 11, we moved to Logan and stayed there till high school, and then went to the U, then found my then husband. We went to Alabama because he was from Alabama, and then LA, and then here.
And all over the US.
Yeah, but I was in Birmingham probably the longest of any one particular place. I was there for like 16 years in total, I think.
My grandpa was from there.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Alabama's a weird place.
I hear that. I believe I know somebody who went on a mission there too, like an LDS mission. Mm-hmm. And hearing their experiences there is kind of interesting.
It's really hot and humid. We moved in July, and I remember going, where on earth did you bring me? I was like so upset. It was just miserable.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is Alabama, okay, on the map, is that above Louisiana?
Yes.
Like right above it? So does it have a coast, or does it have a coast?
No, it does have a tiny little coast.
Just a tiny, okay.
Yeah, like a little bit. And it's right next to like the panhandle of Florida, or the little Alabama coast is right next.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like New Orleans is Louisiana is on the other side of Florida. You know, like, anyway, look at a map. You'll see. It's one of those weird southern states that gets really bad thunderstorms and tornadoes and stuff.
Have you experienced tornadoes there?
I have never been in the middle of a tornado, like immediately affected, because they're very specific. It's like you'll have a tornado warning and you'll kind of hunker down, but the tornado might hit like, you know, miles away from you, and you don't really see the effect, or you see the effect afterwards, but you don't really feel it. So I was in several pretty extreme conditions that, like, there was a major tornado that happened like a couple miles away from our house. And it's just destruction, just this path of just cleared land. It's pretty just awful.
See, tornadoes scare me. That's the one thing I have yet to experience, and hurricanes, I guess, for that matter. I mean, we checkmarked off the earthquake finally this year.
That was the first earthquake you experienced?
That to the extreme, yeah. I guess we did experience a tornado in Salt Lake in '99. I lived in like Syracuse then, so don't really remember much.
Yeah,
about that.
It's weird to have a tornado in Utah.
Yeah, well, and I know, like, if you go more of southish, like the middle of Utah, like in that huge valley of desert or whatever, sometimes they'll get stuff there, but it's never enough to like boom. But one of my fears of traveling in a car, you know, to the east, to the south, or, you know, wherever in that area, is like if you're traveling during the night and then like you see like lightning and then like there's like a tornado like in the distance, like that to me is like a nightmare fuel.
Wow, that would be pretty extreme. You'd know there would be like sirens and stuff. You'd know that a tornado was coming. It wouldn't just pop out of nowhere usually.
I think the movie Twister screwed me up with tornadoes. So
it was good. I like that movie.
Yeah, and that image of the dark tornado, I think it's from like in that movie, they're at a drive-in kind of a scenario, and then in the background you see some lightning, you see the tornado behind the screen.
Yes, that's just burned in your brain.
Yeah, because I saw that when I was like 5, 4.
Oh,
So
that's an impressionable mind right there. That's like a young little blank slate. Poor thing.
I know. I even saw The Ring when I was like 7 or 8, and like yeah. There's just stuff that like is embedded in me, or I'm just like, ugh.
See, for me, I'm so old. You're not even going to know these movies, but the movie that terrified me was Sybil. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sybil.
I have not.
It was Sally Field played this young woman who had multiple personalities, and she had been abused by her mother. It was just this crazy, creepy, like really scary film for a young girl who was like 8, me. The other movie, it was a miniseries, but Roots really bothered me. It's about slavery. The whole.
Yeah, that'd be heavy.
It was just so like dark, and I guess I didn't really understand the whole thing yet because I was so young that it had a huge impression on me. I was like,
yeah. There's those movies that are just they have an effect on you when you're older.
Yep.
Even to this day, I was talking on this other podcast with Patrick, but we were talking about The Ring again because it came out in 2002. Because right now on his podcast, we're covering like year by year, like major stuff. And to this day, like I still remember The Ring. You know, like it's one of my favorite like go-to spooky movies during the season, which starts tomorrow.
Oh my gosh!
I'm still looking forward to it, but I don't know. It's just fun being young and remembering those stuff.
Yeah.
I also remember Mystery Science Theater. Have you ever seen that show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with the silhouettes always making jokes. That was like the go-to on Saturday mornings on the Sci-Fi Channel with like a huge Costco muffin.
A Costco muffin.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
But so going back to the film acting, when you do that sort of acting, are you able to like hone in on more emotions than theater? Because from my understanding, from a non-actor, when you're in theater, like it's more expressive. You want to be more expressive so the audience can see you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas film's a little bit more subtle, but like there's more internal stuff that you could probably showcase in film, maybe.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the difference when I'm doing film, it's very much about just being as natural as possible, right? It's like you don't need to perform. And I tell my students that. I'm like, stop acting. It's not about acting. It's about putting yourself in an imaginary circumstance and going, like just pushing the go button. So, it's not like you have to put on this big performance when you're on camera. At least that's not what I do. Every actor has their own method sort of how to get to where they get. And for me, it's just about, I guess it's very Meisner-esque. I mean, Meisner said that acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And I love that because it's just living your truth, like being there in the moment, being completely present every moment in the scene and reacting in real time based on what you know of the story and the characters, kind of wants and stuff like that. So, with theater, I think I always had that method of operations, even for my theater roles, because I was in smaller venues, I could do that. But when I was younger and doing musicals, there was no internal work. It was very rare that you really went to those depths. It was all very much about, expressing and using your body and projecting your voice in a way that's very unnatural. We don't talk that loud to people.
Yeah.
And we don't move our body and express our face like that, like we do when we're on stage. So it seems like an unnatural medium to me. Theater does.
I kind of view theater acting, if you're comparing it to like film acting, in terms of writing, like how you can write like a play and have that be a script, which I mean, because it is, but it's different than a screenplay, which is a different form of a script, and like it's a different medium essentially to like kind of express stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well, and film is such a, well, I guess theater is a visual medium too, but it's so much about film is so much about the image, it's what we see. And as an actor, when you're in an extreme close up, the only way to be real is to have what I call an internal monologue. You have to have the real thoughts going on in your head. You don't show us that you're upset or sad. Just have the thoughts because thoughts lead to feelings. So if you're true to the thought, then the feeling will show. It'll come through. We'll see it in your eyes in a close up. You don't have to do very much to see it. And I think that's one mistake that some actors that come from theater into a film set can make, is that they feel like they have to show, like they'll ask in class, well, how is, I think my character is really, really sad here. And I'm like, don't talk about emotions. We don't plan our emotions. You don't plan anything. You put yourself in the situation. And if you as the character have a thought that drives you to sadness, then let that happen. But you can't pre-plan those emotions. I think it's a false way to try to approach acting, to pre-plan too much.
That's a good way to look at it. Because with theater, I mean, you don't really get to see the eyes, because like you said, it's all expression and like being kind of over exaggerated, so it conveys to the audience. But with film, I think it's like you said, like with the eyes, like if you're feeling sadness, you're thinking sadness, and like it's gonna come through the eyes, and it's such a cool way to look at it, because like like the eye is like to the soul essentially, and like see that through the lens, like so meta and cool.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny because you have to be, I think the only way that it works is if an actor is willing to be completely vulnerable and open. Because if you're self-conscious and if you're closed in any way, we're going to see that too. It's like we're going to see right through you. So you kind of have to just be willing to go there and be willing to just like rub your emotions raw, like with a cheese grater, and be willing to show it and to really go there. A lot of actors that come to me for classes are like, well, how do I work on crying on cue? And I'm like, you don't. It's not like, there are some people who have like tricks or whatever, but how authentic is that then? If we're just creating some trick to create tears, we can use a tear stick for that. Like if the director really wants that aesthetic of tears rolling down your face, we can do that with whatever, eye drops or tear stick. But what I think is more important than that is the real emotion that's inside. It's much more important to feel that emotion in a very real way in that moment, rather than producing tears. Just because the screenplay says she sobs or she cries, it's like, okay, no, the writer's trying to like, I think, communicate that there's some extreme emotion going on there. But I doubt that the actual tears are all that important, because a lot of the times in real life, we usually cry when we're trying not to cry. And so I think these actors that are like, they know that on this line they're supposed to cry because the script says it. It's like, it's so disingenuous to try to create those tears, because we're not trying to cry when we just cry in real life.
Right.
We don't. We try to stop it. It's that trying to hold back what we can't hold back because our emotions are so strong that make it so impactful. Like when we see an actor really come to tears on camera, it's usually because they're living that moment like they do in real life, and we believe it.
Yeah. I think, and going back to like the tears in a script, like for somebody sobbing, like being a writer, it's really cool sometimes to see even if it's not like uh, word for word or like moment for moment, but for them, for the actors, because it's kind of a challenge for them. And this is my directing mindset, but to like hone in on something before that, even and like just go with like what the character would do. Because as a writer, like you have an idea of what they would do, but like being the writer too, like it's hard to make dialogue realistic. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
that's like one of the biggest feats of being a screenplay writer is making the dialogue realistic enough without being exposition dumps. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also hard to convey emotion through the acting because like if you like there's such thing as overwriting where you're like, oh, they stop here, here, and here, but like that's not giving the actor enough time or freedom,
Mm-hmm.
to express and to play with the character because the great thing about film is there's so many different takes you can do.
Yes. Right. You're not like locked into one performance of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that insight from a writer's perspective. That's very helpful as an actor, I think, to remember that it's hard enough to write dialogue and to try to communicate what the story is.
Yeah.
But then you can't micromanage it for the actor because then they don't have any like ownership in it. It's not their brushstrokes on this story, on this character. It's just them kind of regurgitating what they see on the page and being like this nice little robot that's going to do everything that they're told.
Yeah, and like writing like sometimes doesn't come off as natural. I mean, in their brain as a writer, like it's like, oh yeah, this was how it would play out, because you have
Mm-hmm.
word for word like scenario playing in your brain, but like to watch it come to life during rehearsals or whatever, like sometimes it does not feel natural. And like even like when we did Night of Adventure, I would look at the script before we started shooting and like I just crossed out lines because like once you're in the flow of it
Mm-hmm.
and like once like what their acting style is kind of like and like what their characters would say, like you start tuning into that because then like they pretty much embody that and bold it even more than like what was on the page. Page on the page is just like a basic outline, like
Yeah.
a very, very vague detail of who this character is. It's the acting and the
Mm-hmm.
camera work that like brings that to life, and I think that's exciting.
It is exciting but it's not, I mean, we couldn't do that without the writing, so it's like,
Yeah,
it's
it goes
this
hand in hand.
beautiful like symphony of every instrument has its own like place, and to know when to kind of take that back seat and take that place of, okay, I'm going to play a little bit softer here. Like the writer has to step back at some point
Yep.
and let the actors and the director and the DP kind of take over. I bet is that hard as a writer?
To let go?
Yeah.
So depends. I like the, I don't know, because I'm kind of, what's the word I want to look for? I'm very personal when I write. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I write, I have me directing in mind. So like I know what I'm trying to convey
Yeah.
essentially. But the stuff I've had other people try to direct, like sometimes it makes me cringe, but it's not even like the acting that's that. I mean, it's more of like the directing side, but that's more on my side because I probably didn't convey the emotion properly through the paper.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like I have to take a step back, like, well, this is how they see it. Like,
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's like that saying, and I love this saying that there are three different movies in any project. There's the one that's written, the one that's shot, and the one that's edited. And so to be able to like, I think, turn it over at each stage and go, okay, this was my version of the story when I wrote it. They're going to shoot an entirely different version. It's like unless you're directing it too.
right.
And then what's edited is even different. Then, yeah, I love to see that evolution from like script to final project as an actor to
Yeah.
see how different it is from like when you first audition.
Oh, for sure. And like even like directing, because like I let Chris, the DP for Night of Adventure, like he gave me his insight on stuff. I'm like, yeah, let's see how that works. And a lot of the stuff wasn't how I portrayed it, like in my mind writing. But then there are other scenes where like it was like exactly how it was in writing, and that's such a cool feeling because like I don't know if you watched the short, but the very last shot it just has Emily fiddling with her ring with like the music, and then it kind of cuts like when she's about to get up, and that's exactly how it was on paper. But like the music even was exactly how I pictured it while writing it, and the fact the composer got into it. So
Wow.
it was cool to see how that came together. But
Yeah.
there's those moments where the DP will, say this will actually hone in more on the emotion. And that's how you know you have a good DP, is if they're all about the character and the story as well. And it's not just about making it look pretty.
Yes. Oh boy, there's so much artistry that goes into being a cinematographer. I have such mad respect for, well, really every person on set. They all have their set of skills that's just like so outside of my realm of what I do as an actor.
Yeah. And like, even like sound, like I don't like sound. I think that's one of my least favorite mediums to play in. But like some of the sound people, like when you're on set, like, do you need this audio? Like, do you want me to go capture this audio? You're like, do we need it? It doesn't hurt if we get it. It's only like a minute recording.
Yeah.
It turns out, most times you do need it in some form.
Yeah, for sure. Sound is one of those things that always, to me, is like the telltale sign of a really cheap, kind of not well thought out, like film, short or whatever. Is when the sound is not right. It's like, I can forgive a lot of other stuff, but sound to me is the one thing you just can't forgive.
It's because if you have a bad mix, like it just takes you out. You're like, whoa, why does it sound weird? And then like you totally
takes you out of the story.
Because like even like cinematography, I'm okay with like out of focus shots. Like sometimes it happens. Like
it could be, and it could even be a choice for that matter.
Yeah, and so like I'm okay with that. But like like you said, sound or music choice too. I think music choice is another one. It's like, was this like a temp track originally?
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the writing piece of it, I think it made me realize that auditioning is such a challenge for actors, because all we have at that stage is what's on the script. And we don't even have the whole script. It's like we're given sides, we're given 2 pages, and we have no context. So it's like, I want directors and casting people and producers to understand what kind of a task that is for actors.
That's so nerve-wracking.
It really is. It's like we're expected to just bring to life our version of this character, and we don't have all the information. We don't even have the whole story. So it's like it almost feels like we're detectives at that point. It's like we have our 2 pages and we're trying to figure out everything about this story and this character so that we can like do it justice in the audition.
So when you go to audition, do you like, how do you prepare for that?
Well, I basically look at an audition the way that I would look at being ready for the first day on set. I think it's really important to view the audition as the work. Because if I look at it as the big tryout or the big interview, then it's going to put too much pressure on me. And I can't do that. It's like I have to just be in my element and be ready to do my work. So I take the sides, I take the 2 pages of dialogue or whatever it is, and I kind of do the detective work. I read the scene a few times to kind of get a feel of what the story is. I look at the breakdown to see what the character description is, if we even have that. Sometimes we don't even get that. And, like try to, if we're not told what the genre is, you kind of have to figure out, okay, is this a comedy or am I reading this wrong? Is this like a horror film or like some kind of, whatever. So you kind of have to understand the genre so that you can know how to approach it. And then basically you just kind of, you make some choices as an actor based on those discoveries. You kind of figure out, okay, what's the relationship to this other person that I'm doing the scene with? What do I want from them? Why on earth did the people that are casting this choose these 2 pages for this audition rather than some other scene? So it's like you kind of have to put on so many hats. And then in the days of COVID, we are self-taping or doing Zoom auditions. We also have to be our own film crew for auditions. Basically, I mean, we have to put all the physical aspects together for the audition when we're doing a self-tape. We have to have the right backdrop. We have to have the right lighting. We have to have a reader there with us that's going to do something, to help us. They're going to be videotaping. So it's like there's so much, especially now, that actors have to do just to get ready for an audition. It's a lot of work.
It's kind of exciting though. Like,
it's fun though. It is. It's the work. It's work, and it is the work.
Yeah, and I enjoy watching like old audition tapes. Recently I watched Bill and Ted 3.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever there's a new movie that comes out, somehow old audition tapes surface on Twitter.
Yeah.
And there's one with him or Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter for Bill and Ted. And just like watching them audition for it in like 1986, it was just so entertaining because I don't know. I like that process. But even going back like the pages they give you, I know some directors will request that they give you the opposite what they're looking for, just to see the range of talent that you can emote. And so even though you might think you're getting this part, they're setting you up for a whole different part.
Interesting. That's really, I like that insight. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of what I notice usually with auditions, and especially if it's a larger role, they'll give you at least 2 different scenes to audition with. And usually those scenes show very different parts of the character, so that they can see, like you say, some kind of range. But then there's those little one-liners that we get here, like for Yellowstone or like on Blood and Oil, or because that's what they cast here are the 1 to 5 liners. They're tiny little roles, and it's hard to know what to do with those sometimes.
Were you cast on Yellowstone?
I was in the first season of Yellowstone. It was just a tiny little 5 or less little line, a little role, ER doctor.
That's right. You were talking about it on Facebook. I remember that.
Yeah. Here's the sad thing. It's like I was very grateful I booked that because obviously it's wonderful to work on those shows, but it's funny to see that it took off the way that it did and how popular it's become. And I'm like, why did I have to book the first season, that tiny little role? Why couldn't I have waited until like season 3 and done something juicier? But no, it was good though. Apparently, I don't really watch the show, but people love it.
Yeah, I haven't. I think I saw the first 4 episodes of the first season. My parents, though, absolutely love it. I don't have Paramount Network to watch it on.
Oh, okay.
I do like Taylor Sheridan as like a writer and a director. I think he's a really talented,
fantastic
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's on my watch list eventually.
I got to, he directed my scene, but I met him at the callback for another role. Before I booked that little tiny role, I was up for the lawyer, Doug. They were seeing men and women at that time when they were casting it. They didn't know what they wanted exactly. And I was the only female that was called back for that role. And it was like a recurring. And so at the callback, we went to the Utah Film Studios for the callback. And of course, Jeff Johnson was running it, but Taylor was in the room and he read the scene with me. So I got to act with Taylor Sheridan.
That's so cool.
He was fantastic. Yeah, really nice guy. And then, of course, we worked together on the scene that I did book. But yeah. Yeah,
because so I know him from Sons of Anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
He had like a character on there that, yeah, no spoilers. Mm-hmm. But I remember he reminded me a lot of Thomas, what's his name? The guy from George of the Jungle or Sideways. He has like the really deep baritone voice.
Oh, Thomas Hayden Church?
Yes. So Taylor Sheridan like reminds me a lot of him. So I got the 2 mixed up. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
But then at the Utah Film Awards, I think in 2018, they had like an award for Taylor Sheridan. He sat in front of me during the ceremony.
Okay.
And I chose not to go up to him just because I'm like, he probably is so, busy. Yeah. I was just like, what? We did make eye contact.
Nice.
And he nodded his head at me while I was like trying to get behind me. And I didn't realize how short he is, but he's not. He's not the tallest guy. And
No,
so I was
he's
like,
not.
I'm looking down on you. Like, what? That's my
Yeah.
fanboy moment.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. 2018. That's the year I won the Best Actress Award at the Utah Film Awards
For
for Glass Cages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that one. That's a really good one.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a fun role. It was good to delve in and do something a little dark, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Who directed that one?
Lori Lyle. She's down in St. George.
That's right. I know
She wrote
Lori.
it too. She wrote it.
She's a good person.
Yeah.
I like her stuff.
She's great. Yeah. And we're getting ready to release, hopefully, her first feature film soon. We shot it was it last year or 2 years ago now? Oh my gosh. I think it was last year, called Permitted. It's finished. I think we're going to do a cast and crew screening in October, and she's already submitted to festivals and stuff all over. So,
Is it the one Landon's part of?
mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, all you people doing feature films. Do you prefer short films or feature films then, as like an actor?
Well, I mean, features are great because they're meatier and you have longer to tell the story. But shorts are nice because you can get them done quickly and then you get to see the finished product pretty quick. Hopefully. I mean, there's some things I've never seen that I've done.
That's a thing that happens.
It does happen. But, you know, I think to play a major role in a feature film is kind of like the dream, you know, for an actor to have a really major role. I've done so many small roles in feature films. You know, it kind of feels like a short film in that way. You just show up on your day and do your scene and then you're done. But yeah, it's, you know, I mean, feature films are nice because I think the reach is further. You know, people tend to see feature films more, like they put more merit to them in some way if it's worth watching. I mean, there's a lot of feature films out there that are crap that I wouldn't want to see. So short films are more accessible because I think, so like as an audience member, you're usually more willing to like invest, you know, 5 to 10 minutes in watching something than you are to watching like an hour and a half of some unknown feature film.
What do you look for, like when you audition for characters, or like when, let's say, like you are brought onto a project? Like, what do you exactly look for in the character?
What do you mean, as far as preparing, or
even like in the process of acting? Like, how do you really dive deep into the psychology of your character?
You know, it's a game of imagination for me because I can't have experienced everything that my character has experienced unless you're totally method. And I think that's a really dangerous place to go. Even Stanislavski, who was the father of the method, later came out and said that he was wrong and that he thinks that that the method was a dangerous psychological experiment for actors. So, so for me, I do a little research. If it's something that's kind of outside my realm of understanding, like with Glass Cages, I had to play an agoraphobic woman. And I didn't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I knew that, yeah, there was the fear of going outside. They kind of, you know, it's an anxiety disorder, but I really had to delve in and do a lot of research on that. I read a couple of books and articles. I got on some like blogs and support groups for people who have agoraphobia, just to kind of get their side of things. I have a friend who has agoraphobia that I sat down with and got her real story. So yeah, you get as much information as you can. You research. It's like doing a research project. And then once you kind of understand what the inner workings of someone with that issue is, then it's easier to put yourself in that imaginary circumstance, because you kind of know the thought process. You know what makes them tick. You know, and without like pre-planning every moment in the script, you're just able to have a better understanding of how they would approach this scene, how they would have this conversation with their ex-husband, how they, all of that. So it's just doing research and putting yourself in the imaginary circumstance.
Yeah, I think research is like overlooked a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like for people who don't know anything but like acting or filming or theater, like anything of that sort. I mean, even like if you're drawing or painter, like just being an artist,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of research that goes into it. And like, I know for like one script I wrote, I had my Google search. They should just have like a Google search for writers. Like I'm a huge advocate for that because I had to research like how much damage a compound bow can do to somebody.
Oh, interesting.
For reasons in the script.
Uh-huh.
And it led me down this rabbit hole of watching hunting videos, which I'm not a hunter at all. Like I know nothing about that, but there's this video of this guy who shot a moose in the heart with a bow and arrow and killed him instantly. Like,
wow,
brutal. So took that kind of like idea and put it in the script. But even like with DPs, I know a lot of cinematographers will look at paintings for framings and get inspired by that. And I know a lot of actors, like you said, actually talk with people who experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, that's the only way that I can really get into the mind of someone, is to actually talk to somebody who's had some of those issues.
Yeah. Is there something that draws you into the story then?
You mean before I even get involved in a project?
Yeah, like what do you look for in a script before agreeing to it?
Well, I want to make sure that it's something that I would want to watch, first of all. And I have a pretty diverse, I think, body of what I'm willing to watch. So, I don't shy away from the horror stuff. I don't shy away from language or whatever. So it's not like I have this certain list of things that I won't do. I've never done nudity, and I don't think I would at this age. I don't think I would, unless it was in there for some purpose, like, I'm found dead in a bathtub. You know what I mean? Like that would be the exception for nudity, I think. But what draws me? I think it needs to be a compelling story. The character I need to connect with on some level. Even if it's so different from me, I have to be able to find something that I can anchor into. Because ultimately, I'm going to be the one playing the role. So I have to connect in some way with this character, even if they're an axe murderer. If you're playing the villain, villains don't know they're the villains all the time. They don't think they're the ones that are evil. They think they're justified in what they're doing, right? So it's like you have to know what is that thing. You can't hate the character, because how can you possibly play it realistically if you can't stand this character? So I think there's got to be some kind of connection that I can see, even if it's far-fetched. I think I love good writing as far as just the dialogue feeling natural. The other thing that would connect me to a project or make me want to be attached to a project is who's directing it. If I trust the director, or who's DPing, because sometimes you just are excited to work with a DP that's like kick-ass. You just know that it's going to be this most incredible, like, visual journey. And then of course it's also a big selling point. Who else is involved in the project acting wise? Who are you going to be acting alongside? Yeah.
Fascinating. I like hearing what draws people to projects, because I know there's some who won't do certain stuff. Which is fine. And I know there's others who will do whatever, which is fine too, because I feel like if you do whatever, then like you open yourself up to some like awful projects.
Exactly. You have to, I think having boundaries is really important.
Yeah.
And boundaries for yourself as an artist, just to say, you know what, I'm not going to do every single thing that people ask me to do. When you're first starting out, that's fine, because you need to get the resume built up and you need to get stuff for your reel. But at a certain point, you have to respect yourself enough to go, I'm not going to do the little 5-minute short that somebody wants me to do because they're trying to experiment with something that's going to be crap. Like, it feels good to be asked to do something. And I think a lot of actors get sucked into that idea that they asked me to be in their project, so of course I'm going to say yes. But it's okay to say no.
Yeah. I think it's powerful to say no.
Mm-hmm. It really has taken me the last few years, the last couple of years, I've been able to say no to some projects, and it is empowering because it's for the right reasons. I said no because either I didn't believe in the project, or I didn't believe in the people who were making it, or I didn't feel like I was going to be getting what I was worth money-wise, like for some things.
Yeah.
I just couldn't invest my time in something.
Yeah. And I think, if you say no, there's no hard feelings either. That's the beauty of this, is people say no all the time.
Right.
Shoot at this location? No. All right.
Oh man, actors hear no all the time. We don't hear no, we just don't hear anything.
There's a lot of no's.
That's a really frustrating part of being an actor.
Not being in the loop.
Well, just putting everything you have into an audition and then just radio silence. And I understand why it happens. A production can't contact every single person who auditioned and said, "Hey, by the way, just so you know, we're done casting this project and we didn't book you." I understand why it happens, but it's like, there's always this thing in the back of your mind after you audition, you're kind of holding on to like this, okay, I wonder if they booked it yet. I wonder if they booked it. And then you just don't hear anything. And then you notice that someone on Facebook posted that they booked this really cool role. And you're like, oh, that was the role that I auditioned for. But also it's happened that, I haven't heard for months. And then all of a sudden I'll get a call from my agent going, "Hey, they want to book you on this thing." And I'm like, I thought that was done, like a done deal. But, sometimes things are just put to rest for a while and then they are resurrected.
Yeah.
So as an actor, I think the best advice I could give to a new actor, or really any actor, and it's advice for myself, and that is, when you leave the audition, leave it. Leave it in the room. Leave it wherever you did it. Just know that you did your work and walk away. And don't attach any kind of outcome to it. Because if you sit and stew on it, I know actors that just obsess. They really can't let it go until they know that it's booked. And I think that's no way to live.
No, that's like anxiety.
Yes, it is anxiety provoking.
That's like, because like I've sent a couple scripts to some producers and not hearing back from them like a month. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, what do you think? And then a month later, after that, they're like, "Oh, hey, I finally got around to it." I'm like, is it good if you waited that long? I get it though. People are busy.
Yeah, it's true.
But like you said though, like after an audition, especially after you think you did really well, I think you deserve some ice cream after that. Let go, get some ice cream, and enjoy the night or day or whatever.
I always tell like parents of young actors, because I coach a lot of young people too, but to like basically that advice, like have the after audition ritual where you just treat them to something fun. So that the most important thing that happened that day wasn't the audition, it's just part of their day. Like for these young kids, to just know that that's like, okay, they go to the park and then they go to get ice cream and they do an audition and then they go to play with their friends. It's like just one other thing on their docket.
Yeah. I don't think that's bad advice at all.
Takes the pressure off.
That's actually really good advice, I would say. Even because like if they keep at it, with the acting, then eventually it's going to become so accustomed to their schedule, then they're going to get ready for more auditions. Because I know people audition for countless projects, sometimes a day, But it's hard work to audition because you have to prep for it and you have to do your research and imagine and think. And imagining and thinking takes a lot of work. I know it surprises people, but
it really does.
Even after like writing like one page, I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Break time. what's a movie that actually drew you into acting then? Like, do you have a favorite movie that you remember?
You
Or
know,
actress, actor?
really, I think I started to become really enamored with acting when I was young. And I used to love to watch the old, like 1940s movies. I loved Betty Davis and like Katharine Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant. Like, I loved the Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant like comedy that they would do, and but then the Betty Davis like high drama, you know, it was all so like melodramatic, but there was just something so like engaging, and it just like it takes you by the shoulders and just like sucks you into this story for 2 hours or whatever it is. And there was something about just getting lost in movies as a young person. My mom loved old movies, and so she was like the one who would introduce me to these things. And I'd watch musicals, Singing in the Rain, and
That's a good one.
yeah, you know, I always loved the comedy pieces, and so I think that's always been something that I've loved to do performance wise too. Is comedy. There's an improv. But then, of course, the dramatic stuff I absolutely love as well. So
I think you're stellar at the dramatic stuff I've seen. So
oh, thank you.
yeah. With comedy though, like, do you have like a favorite form of comedy? Like, I know you said improv, but I mean, the comedy is so subjective. Like, there's dark comedy, then there's like slapstick comedy.
You know, it's funny because it's like I think I see the value in all of it as an actor. It's fun for me to play some of those like commercial comedic things that are like non-speaking and just like facial expressions. It's all about reactions. I think there's someone said, who was it? Tom Post. Do you know Tom locally? He's an actor.
I don't think I do.
He accused me of being the master of the micro expression. And it's funny when I look at like I put together a sizzle reel from my commercial stuff, and basically it's all just my micro expressions or like an eyebrow lift or but to me that's really fun because it's not outwardly like slapstick. It's all very internal, thought driven. And it's just fun to like see what happens with my face when I'm reacting to things internally. As far as improv goes, I studied at UCB in LA, Upright Citizens Brigade. That's the Tina Fey and Amy Poehler group. That was all kinds of fun. It's kind of long form improv. You know, you're given a scenario and you just kind of run with it.
Like, whose line is it anyway kind of thing?
Well, that's more like short form. The whose line is it anyway? They're like very specific little exercises. This is more like you get like somebody stands up and tells a real story that happened to them, like a memory. And then as one of the improv actors, you're thinking of little parts of that you can play with. And then you just start a scenario by starting a first line, and then other people kind of join in, and it can be as long as you want it to be. So there's really no structure as far as like a theater game or an improv game. It's just like this long form, whatever. It's fun. Improv is challenging because you have to be thinking all of the time, and it's fast. And you also have to be really like educated as far as current events and, you know, to know what the references are. Because if you're not up on stuff, you're going to be lost or you're going to miss an opportunity for a joke. So to find the funny is always a challenge.
I always like the Saturday Night Live bits when you could tell that they break character and they try to look away, and like I think it's funny. And then even like whose line is it anyway, which is total improv.
Oh yeah,
just seeing them break character and just like they have
fun.
to like catch themselves and think. I
know.
With
Colin Mockery from we had to shut down because of COVID, but I've been working on a feature film with him.
Ooh.
That the guys at Oh, Jeremy Warner and the old Studio C guys that did the JK Studio. This like they've kind of come up with their new comedy stuff, and this is their first feature film. And they've got Colin involved, and I can't remember the name of the other guy. There's one other guy from Whose Line Is It Anyway? He wasn't there from the beginning, but anyway. But yeah, those guys are brilliant. They are so fast and so witty and just so much fun to be on set with.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I don't know when it'll pick up again. Production wise, we're still kind of on hold. It was a SAG production, so they had to, pretty much listen to guidelines.
Yeah, well, COVID. What can you do?
I know.
Has me scratching my head. Like before we got on the Zoom call, I was talking to my sister. Like I'm so split because I want to go see a movie, like Tenet, and then I told myself I can't because like social distancing, like you don't feel comfortable. Yeah. And I was like, talk me out of like wanting to go see it, and she's like, well, you don't like you're split. You don't want to go see it, and I'm like, I know, but like, what if they do clean the theaters? She's like, procedures are always changing. I wouldn't trust it. I'm like, you're right.
I know, it's scary. It is. I haven't moved to in-person classes yet. I'm still doing all of my coaching and classes on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. It's seeing some of the stuff on Facebook too, the people filming, and like some of them are taking extra precaution, which is great, and some of them not so much.
It's true. So great. I worked on one of the Hallmark films that's being shot for Christmas stuff in Utah just about a month ago. I just had one day. It was a very small role. And that was like intense. I loved it because it was like everyone had a mask on. They worked it into calling the shot that one of the action lines, it's like, roll camera, roll whatever, blah, 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 all of that. Masks off, masks on. They put it in. So as soon as cut is called, masks on they go back on between takes. So the actors, like principal cast, we are, they come in and do last looks, and then we put the mask back on and wait for them to call the shot. Masks off, take it off, put it somewhere. A PA grabs your mask. You do the scene, cut, masks on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's intense. Everyone's masked up. The entire crew is trying to stay apart from each other. The grips come do their thing. The gaffer, it's all very, no one's just kind of gathered around anymore. They do their thing and then they scatter as far away as they can. And they were doing the COVID tests, the spit tests every 3 days with cast and crew because that's an immediate test. You can get the results right away. Before I stepped on set, I had to be tested 3 times, 3 different ways. I had the nasal swab, the blood prick, the finger prick for the antibodies, and then the spit test. Before I stepped on I was just a day player. I mean, I'm just there for one day.
Wow, that's like super.
It was intense. I really appreciated it though. It made you feel so safe because it was like, everyone was taking care of everybody else, it was really nice. And then of course you go to an independent film set and it's a completely different thing. Everyone gets really lax. A couple of people start taking their masks off and then they never go back on. So it's like, it's up to you to kind of, as an individual, to go, okay, well, how much am I going to wear this mask and how important is it to me? And do you ask other people to put their mask on? So I don't know.
I was shopping actually. So this was my first anti-mask, what do you call it? Encounter at a store. Mm-hmm. And these people, which is weird because Salt Lake's mandated. Mm-hmm. All the stores are trying to mandate it, but these guys just walked right on through. Employees didn't do anything. But then I noticed employees were had it below their noses and stuff. I'm just like, oh no. And then these people were walking around boasting about not wearing a mask, and this guy had prison tattoos all over him, and he kept making eye contact with me. I can't say anything. I don't want to die. I can't say anything. So I tried to avoid him by going in different aisles, and they'd follow me in different aisles. It was so
weird.
Much anxiety. It was weird and very much anxiety. It's just the right thing to do would tell them to put on their mask, but like also,
I know wow, that's crazy.
yeah, at least it wasn't like a dramatic video that I've seen on Facebook. So
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what would happen during those.
Oh my God. Okay.
But what are some of the best highs that you've experienced?
It always feels really good to book that really big project. Last year when I had a fairly substantial role on one of the Hallmark Christmas films, that was really fun. I got to work next to Richard Karn from Home Improvement.
Oh,
He was my on-screen husband. He was fantastic. Working with him for 3 weeks was just like heaven. He was so great, such a nice guy. But that was really fun to like get to do a project for that long, a big union project. Even some of these smaller roles that I've had on some big projects have been kind of highs for me. Like there's one last year, Mark Wahlberg shot his film Good Joe Bell in town, and they were casting a lot of the smaller roles out of Utah. And I got a nice, very small role, but it was a very pivotal moment in the film. So I'm excited to see that come out soon. It's actually premiering at the Toronto Film Festival this month, or in September.
is that the one with Mark Wahlberg with like all grizzly Adams?
Yeah. And it's like the team is like an Oscar nominated team. Like they're amazing. Working with directors and DPs of that tier just for that one day of shooting was like this treat. I mean, it's kind of like working with Taylor Sheridan, in that way that you feel like you're in such good hands, and yet they're still collaborating with you as an actor to make the scene the best that it can be. So those have been some really fun moments to work with people like that.
It's such an interesting thing, is that like to them it's just like another day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to you and like other small actors or smaller crew,
Yeah,
it's like a huge step forward.
right. Yeah, because we don't work on those kinds of projects every day in Utah. I mean, They only come along every so often. I will say this though, another fun high for me in my acting career was winning the Utah Film Award. That was a lot of fun because it was like that moment of like recognition, you kind of like celebrate and you actually get this little statue to take home. I mean, I know to some people it seems silly, but it feels good.
Yeah, you deserve it.
It feels good to be recognized for what we love to do,
Yeah, I think Landon won Best Actor that year.
That year, yeah, yep.
I actually had my screenplay nominated for Best Screenplay. I didn't win, but then last year is when we won Best Under 500. I was like,
I wasn't there because I was recovering from hip surgery.
That's right, you were.
I couldn't be there.
I thought that was this year. That's why I was like, how's your year been?
I had it twice, yeah. No, I mean, both of them have been done. Last year was the left hip, and this year was the right hip. So I'm completely bionic hip-wise now.
What's recovery like with that? I know recovery is kind of if you have knee surgery, so I don't know how it is with
hip surgery is pretty easy. It's I mean, basically you have to be kind of careful for a few weeks, but you're walking like immediately after surgery. They want you walking, so you're stiff and it hurts. The surgical pain takes a couple of weeks to go away, but it's been 3 months now for me on my right, and I feel pretty much back to normal.
The hips. It's all in the hips.
The hips don't lie.
Okay, what are some like the moments that you've actually been kind of like low? Like, have you ever doubted?
Oh, all the time. That is just the thing that actors do. It's funny because it'll happen in those moments where it's just kind of a dry spell, booking wise. You feel like you've been auditioning a lot and just not booking anything. I was feeling like that last week, actually. I had so many auditions last week, and then it's like this letdown of this is when you wait. And then you kind of start doubting yourself, and you're like, well, I don't know. It's really easy. I posted a thing on Facebook just the other day because about self-doubt, and reminding myself and other actors that why we do what we do, and that we can't give up on ourselves. It's like, I act because I don't think there's anything else I could do that would make me feel this great. I think about it every single day, and it brings me like purpose. It's my passion. I happen to think that I'm pretty good at it. So it's nice that I think the things that we're good at, that we gravitate towards, have something to do with like our purpose in life. And for me, teaching and acting has always been the thing that kind of came naturally to me. And so I think, yeah, it brings me a lot of joy. So, and it's not just a selfish joy either. I think the reason I love it is I love connecting with other people, whether it be my scene partner or connecting to an audience that I never see. But, kind of on the other side of that lens, like moving an audience member in a way and taking them on this journey through this story. I think that there's a lot of power that actors have, filmmakers, that we all have. I mean, it's collaborative in that way. So it's not just the actor, but yeah, I love the connection.
I have to tell you something. When I saw Glass Cages, I actually got goosebumps watching you.
Really?
Like when you broke down, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. Thank you for telling me that.
Just so you know.
Thanks.
So when I say that, like, I think you're a great actress, like 100%, like, believe that full on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking over.
No, you're fine.
Everything. How do you handle the self-doubt then?
I have to just keep reminding myself why I do it.
Just keep doing it.
And I have to also not believe everything that my brain tells me. Like I have to just remember that I felt this way before, and that I always book something eventually, that the work always comes. It will come. It might not be on my timeline the way I like it, and I might not be consistently working every week, but I know that if I just keep doing my work and I am true to myself, and I'm open to opportunities, that the opportunities will keep coming, and they have. And sometimes there have been a month of nothing, and that's when you start to feel it. But I just keep reminding myself, I've been here before, I've felt like this before, and then I book that thing, and it's wonderful, and I feel great. So
and then it repeats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. The cycle of being an artist.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I think the more I can look at those auditions as actually doing the work and having those many opportunities to act, then I feel like I'm still working, even though I'm not getting paid. The auditions are the work, so I just need to keep reminding myself of that too.
I like that. It's always interesting to, I don't know, because like even like me right now, like I'm in that dry spell, where I'm just like I've finished 2 features so far in quarantine, but it's been like a year and a half in the work of that, and it's only first draft, so I'm like still have stuff to do with those, and I'm like almost done with another one, and then it's like I have to repeat and send it out to people and get feedback, and then go back, and then like it's the waiting period of the feedback on that. I'm like, what am I doing in the meantime for that? Like, do I still write? Do I want to write? I don't know. But a lot of that could just be because I'm been so isolated for a few months.
I think that's definitely taking a toll on everybody. Just the whole isolation thing. It's been hard.
It has been, and I think I don't know. I feel like 2020 has been a good time to kind of reconnect with ourselves in a way, and how people go about that is, personal preference, but to recognize that you are feeling kind of mentally like crazed. Yeah. At least you could dig deep into why, and then go back to your roots, and try to expand and do things differently, and kind of relearn more stuff about yourself. Because I think we get so caught up in the cycle of, waiting periods of putting stuff out there, of wanting to produce, of wanting to do something creative that we don't pay attention to, like why, number one, and number two, like how, and like who we are, and how those kind of intertwine, go back deeper into the the craft of creating.
Right. Yeah, I think it's easy to get stuck in that, like that idea of just like the approval seeking part of being an artist, like waiting to see if we book the job, or waiting to get feedback on your script, and to kind of take a step back and say, wait, why am I really doing this? It's not to get approval. It's to do my art.
That's what it is. And like, I mean, you touched on it, saying acting is passion, I think, like, what does it mean to have passion? I think we, a lot of people take it for granted, like, oh, like, you're passionate about it, but like, you don't know why, like hone in on that passion and like really like let it ignite something inside of you, like, I think that's when we're at our best work, is like when we're like go full on at that, but then you need that rest period, because it does take a lot out of you. And then it's like another period of going back to that cycle of pausing and like reconnecting.
That's interesting, because you asked how I deal with those lows. One other thing that's been really helpful is when I'm feeling those little slumps and the dry spells, to try to look at it differently, to change the lens, and to kind of go, okay, wait, this is my opportunity to reboot myself, to take care of myself, and to do something that I maybe didn't have time for before. So I think that's important.
Yeah. And I, like, for me, movies is one thing, to like watch movies and whatever, but I've actually been trying, due to quarantine, I've been trying to get more back into reading, because I used to read a lot back in school, and then for whatever reason fell out of it. So that's been kind of fun, and it's just kind of nice to stay off the phone. I think that's another thing. And like, you start making these connections of like where things are kind of like, but there's things that make you feel like, oh. So I don't know. 2020 has been interesting. It's been a great, weird, bad year all at once.
Yeah, it has been all the things.
Telling you, December 32nd is going to happen this year.
32nd.
We're like, yay, New Year. Oh, what?
Yeah, something weird's going to happen. They'll add a new, another version of leap year. They'll add another day to December every 4 years.
That'd be hell.
Yeah. I'm ready for 2021. I shouldn't say that, because we always say, oh boy, that was a bad year, and then something else happens. So
yeah, well, like last year, or like, the beginning of this year, people are like 2020 hindsight, like eagle vision, we got this. And then it quickly just like, do you?
It really did. It just took a nosedive. Oof. I was feeling so good in January. I'm like, this is going to be my year. Oh, I think everyone was kind of like that. And then here comes March.
Yep. Because I first moved out in September out of my parents' place. So I'm on my own now.
Okay.
And then 2020, I'm like, this is going to be such a great year. Like, like halfway done with like being moved out, like this. And then that hasn't happened. So like, this is an interesting first year moved out, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. You've gotten to know your apartment really well.
I have, yeah. I got to know my neighbors. I got to know their schedules, and just listening to doors open and close. Their dogs. I know their dog schedules. Like when they
between the blinds, watching the neighbors.
Yeah, well, actually, like my neighbors across the way, they've called the cops like twice on each other.
Oh.
And so there's been times when I've walked out of my apartment and there's cops just waiting there, and I'm like, I'll go back in just for a minute.
Got some domestic issues going on.
Yeah, they're interesting. I think apartment living is interesting.
It is an interesting thing. I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, it's always interesting.
Just a bit. But
the last apartment I lived in, just one more little quick story because it's bizarre. It was in Encino when I was in LA, and we had a pool, and I'd sit out at the pool, and this big Russian guy would come up. He had a tattoo of Jesus on his chest. And he'd come to my lounge chair. I'd be laying, just kind of getting some sun, and he'd go, "You look good." with his big Jesus tattoo. And he would just stare at me until I'd say something to him. And then he invited me to Big Bear to his cabin. And I'm like, dude, I don't know you. And you could be a serial killer too. So like, he was creepy. He was weird. He was always hitting on me constantly.
Yeah, let's be glad that you didn't go to the cabin.
I know. I'm sure there are some women who would.
That's just boggling. That's very mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have like some people here who like to dumpster dive, which I think is really weird. Oh, another thing too. This is weird, kind of gross, but kind of funny, but also like WTF. So like my complex has different buildings, right? So in my building specifically, they like gave out a notice to clean up your dog stuff. I'm like, great, reasonable. I don't, whatever. I don't have a dog, so it's not geared towards me, people.
Right.
And then the following week, I guess somebody's been placing the dog bags on the grills out by their playground area, and they had to call people out on that. I'm just like, people in my building did this. And I live with the complex or with 3 of my aunts. And so I called them up. I'm like, did your building get this notification? Like, I've never even heard of that. I'm like, well, now you have. So yeah, apartments living is interesting.
It is interesting for sure.
But okay, how do you hope you can inspire others?
I think just by sharing my experience. As a teacher, I get the opportunity to work one-on-one with people, and I can share my experience in a more effective way that way, I think. But, it's like interviews like this, and I've done several podcasts and just, I don't know, just talking to people on set, kind of sharing hope and sharing, sharing what works for me, to make life not feel so crappy sometimes. I think people get really stuck for whatever reason. So I think just to look, anyone can be inspiring if they have a story to tell. And so I just try to tell my story. And maybe somebody will find some nugget in there from my experience that's helpful and that's like inspiring for them that day. And that's all I can hope for. And it's really, again, it's about connection, making a connection with another human being. That's how we get inspired.
But most importantly, yourself.
Yeah.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Boom.
So.
And just a few more questions, and then we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
What do you aim to work for by the end of your career? Like, where do you hope to see yourself?
It's interesting. A few years ago, my husband said, what do you see yourself in 5 years or whatever? What do you want out of this? I'm like, you know what? I just want to be a steadily working actor. And I want to continue to teach. I want to do projects that challenge me. I don't care about fame and fortune. I don't need to be, in the next blockbuster film. You know what I mean? Like that would be great. I take it for sure. Give me an Oscar nomination. Okay, yeah, let's do that. You know what I mean? But it's like, that's not the goal for me. My goal has always been to be a consistently working actor that's proud of their work. That's not just doing it because someone said, hey, will you do this? But, to take pride in what I do. Yeah. To feel good about it, to share and to connect with other people through it.
I think it's really cool. I think it's very powerful to acknowledge that, like there's a lot of people here who want the big blockbuster and the big Oscar. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great milestone achievements. But even for me, like being a writer director, I'm like, it would be so nice to be nominated for an Oscar. And it's easy to get swooned by that ego trip of the possibility of it happening, and you forget the passion. And like you said, is that you want to be steadily working and still telling the story. And I think that's very powerful in itself. And it's powerful to remind yourself of that.
I think it is, because it, like you say, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the idea of being a celebrity or being known. And the truth is, I want to be able to go to the grocery store and not have people take my picture. You know what I mean? So it's like, I I don't need that. I don't need the fame and the celebrity. I want to feel good about my work.
Yeah. It reminds me, I was watching because of Bill and Ted 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think Keanu Reeves is just such a cool dude overall.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to find all these awkward interviews with him, and like he's such like a humble guy, you know. Whoops.
Yeah.
And like I was watching this video of this paparazzi guy, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. And he's just like following Keanu through the airport, and Keanu's trying to get away from him and hide his face, and then like he walks backwards toward him, and Keanu Reeves is the most nice guy ever. He's like, you know, you're a real idiot, and then he just like walks off, and I'm like, being told that by Keanu Reeves, like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you think so.
But yeah, I think that amount of fame would be really hard to struggle with. I admire people who do it and find balance in it. Like, such a weird lifestyle almost. But yeah. I also think about it because like I was looking like the personality test, you know, and I'm like, well, maybe certain personalities like handle it a lot more better than other people.
Yeah.
And then like my personality test, I'm like, probably not. I'm more definitely much more introverted and just like don't put the spotlight on me.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah. All right. What's one piece of advice that has stuck with you throughout the years, and how do you apply it?
I think really it's back to that idea of that, I can't remember the exact quote, but if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. You know, that concept that I feel really lucky that I've been able to do the thing and pursue the thing that brings me so much joy. Because when I step on set, it doesn't feel like I'm working. I mean, yeah, I put in work, but it's such a joy and so wondrous. It's like, I love it. I love the work. And so I think, you know, a lot of the times I'll tell young actors who have these ideas of fame and fortune, I tell them, if there's anything else you can do in life that's going to bring you joy and fulfill you, do that. Because acting it's not for the weak. You know, it can be hard work, but it's only worth it if you have to do it. And I feel driven. I have to do it. I couldn't be happier doing anything else.
It's just that happy. You want to keep that happiness, essentially.
Yeah. I don't want to feel like I have to go to work. You know, like, oh, gotta go on set today. I mean, if it starts to feel like that, then I'll stop.
I actually think so. Like, even now with like a day job, you know, there's those days where I'm just like, oh no, just out of bed at 6, clock in right away, like working from home. Thanks, COVID. But there's other days, like if you had to get up early in the morning to do like these major sets to help out with friends, you know, like waking up for those, I'd never remember being like, oh, I have to wake up. Like, it's always like, I got to shower. I got to get there on time.
Can't wait to get there. It's like, let's do this. Yeah.
Especially if it's an all day thing that sometimes goes into the middle of the night. I mean, like there's been like 17-hour days just trying to help friends.
Yep.
And I always find a reason, or try to find a reason to be like one of the last people to leave off set, just because I like talking to people afterward.
Yeah.
It was just me helping lighting or PAing or whatever, you know. It's always like the hangout sessions afterwards, always fun. And
yeah,
you're going to get like 5 hours of sleep, so you have to work the next day. You're like tired, but it was
it's worth it. Yeah, it doesn't feel like work. Yeah, I totally.
No. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. But okay. Hey, Charla.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
They can find me several different places. My website, charlaactor.com. That has all of my teaching and my acting stuff. I'm on social media. @Charla Actor is my handle for all of the social media stuff. Where else can you find me? I don't know. That's about it. Oh, and I wrote a book, so there's that too. Yeah, if you're interested. This is a whole other subject, but I wrote the book about my daughter dying. And actually, it's International Overdose Awareness Month, day today.
The 31st of August.
I should mention it. Yeah, but yeah, so I did write a book. It's called My New Normal, A Mother's Story of Love and Loss in the Opioid Epidemic. And that is available on Amazon. And the website for that is mynewnormalbook.com. So, yeah, or look me up on IMDb. See what I've been up to. Got some cool projects coming up.
You'll probably see a lot of stuff from Charla.
I'm ready to keep working.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's always nice touching up.
Touching
base, yeah.
You mixed your, yeah, that's okay.
I'm good with words, I promise.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. There's the case with the books, that thing with the bookcase, like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was. Okay.
I don't know either.
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter. No, not Facebook. Don't find me on Facebook. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. I try to keep Facebook more for other stuff. Yeah.
Personal?
I don't know. It's more like, people find me through there, like within the Utah industry. I'm like all for it. But I don't like random people. We don't have a lot of neutrals.
That's why I have my professional page on Facebook in addition to my profile, like my personal profile.
Yeah, but also on Facebook, I'm a lot more professional too than I am on Twitter. So if you want to follow my real self, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where you'll get the dark humor stuff.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Carla.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, I really do appreciate it. I've been meaning to reach out to you. So.
No, I'm glad. I sort of I sent myself an invite for this, basically. I kind of invited myself to the party. No,
you were actually on my written list. Fun fact. I had a written list of people. I have not looked at it since I started the podcast, but you were on that list.
Well, no, it's fun. I like I like to chat. It's good. Chat about what we love.
Yeah. And I'm seriously though, I love your performances. I think everybody should check your stuff out. And
I do have a new film on Amazon Prime called Envelope.
Oh.
Or Envelope. It's spelled like envelope, but then there's a space and an E.
Ooh.
It's a short, but it's about 30 minutes almost. And it's on Amazon Prime.
And Jeff, is his name Jeffrey? Did that one?
No, Jeff Saunders. He did. He DP'd the Glass Cages. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I thought he.
Walter Meekum is the one who did Envelope.
Oh, see, I saw Jeff promoting it on Facebook.
Okay, Envelope is very dark. Ooh. It's really dark.
I'm down for dark.
And it's yeah, it's a crazy story. So if you don't, there's a little bit of language in it. There's it's definitely not for kids, the subject matter.
Sorry, kiddos.
Yeah.
Neither is this podcast, so if they're listening to that, I'm like,
the kids can watch me and check into Christmas on the Hallmark Channel.
Was that last year? Or is that
that was last year's?
But it's going to be this year too. I mean, Hallmark replays all these movies all the time.
With COVID, they started playing Christmas stuff again in March, and so yeah, it replayed a bunch. Hopefully, I'll get some residuals for that.
my bonus mom loves Hallmark, so that's the thing we connect with over Thanksgiving and Christmas. But we'll see if that's the same this year with COVID.
Yeah. All right.
But all right, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.